I refer to a big piece of unfinished work, tax reform. Now, I was reluctant to talk about question 1 in this setting. It's a complicated piece of policy, but I've been urged to do so because there's an incredible amount of misinformation out there that our antiquated tax system is not only broken, but broken in a way that prevents us from making other needed strides forward. For each of the past 8 years that I've served in the legislature, we've cut the budget and cut the budget simply to balance it because revenues have fallen and we need to make up the difference. We measure success by how much we mitigate the cuts. Cuts that hurt people. Cuts that stifle state investment in education, in roads, in quality of place. Yes, we're proud that we've been able to creatively mitigate the pain of those cuts, but we'd much rather be in a place where we didn't have to make those cuts. And to get there, we need a new revenue collection system. We can't continue to have a system where in good years, 40%, a full 40% of our sales tax revenue comes from the sale of just 2 items, new cars and building supplies, which tank in a recession. We can't continue that. We can't continue to have a system that is burdened by one of the narrowest sales tax bases in the country, taxing just 24 out of the 160 items taxed nationally, creating incredible volatility. We can't continue to have a system that has one of the lowest meals and lodging taxes around, especially since in Maine, 40% of that tax is paid by non-residents. We are living with the same outdated tax system that existed in the 1960s. Well, the world has changed and it's time for our tax system to change. This new law does 4 things. It will help stabilize state revenues so that we are not forced to deal with the same kind of budget shortfalls we've had to during recent years. This will help all Mainers, but particularly the needy. Second, this law will give a little push to our economy at a time when we desperately need it. Most of Maine's small businesses will see a small tax cut, and the State Planning Office estimates that 750 new jobs will be created by this bill. Third, the law will lower the tax burden on Maine people by about $50 million, putting a little money in our pockets when it's needed. We do all this without reducing any state revenues. We do this by having non-residents pay a little more. And finally, we do it all fairly. When all is said and done, every income group, whether low, middle, or higher income people, will pay essentially the same proportion of the tax burden they do now. But because we're lowering that tax burden on residents by $50 million, everyone will win. Now, I say we'll pay essentially the same because the new tax code is actually more progressive, so that low and middle income people will receive more of the benefit relative to their income. A lot of people ask, how can this be? You're lowering the income tax, which is progressive. You're raising the sales tax, which is regressive. How can you do this and have a new system that's more progressive? Well, the answer is this new income tax system is so much more progressive that even after adding in any sales tax increases, the overall new system, sales and income tax combined, is more progressive. Beyond that, practically every low and middle income Mainer will see a small, but in this economy, important net tax cut after paying any new sales taxes. So why the confusion about all of this? Well, I think part of what confuses people is they hear about dropping that top income tax rate from 8.5 to 6.5%, and they think that that is going to be a giveaway to the rich. Well, that's not the case. Most Mainers will receive a household credit that will reduce their tax burden well below that 6.5%, and the largest credits will go to low and middle income people. And those people who pay relatively little income tax currently, they will have a refundable credit so they can get some cash back to offset any sales tax increases. This is a fair and smart system. Now, before I close, I need to share one more frustration about how this issue has become politicized. We just heard that the National Association of Realtors will soon launch a major television ad campaign to urge voters to vote to repeal the new tax bill. Now, why does this national organization care? Well, ostensibly, it's because they are worried about how this bill affects itemized deductions and specifically the home mortgage deduction. Now, if they're worried, they should have done their homework. And if they had done their homework, I think those worries would have been removed. But I think there's something else driving this. But first, let me just talk about what the new law does. Because you'll be hearing on the TV, probably starting on Monday, something very different than the truth. The benefits of itemized deductions are not eliminated by this new law. Maine taxpayers who itemize will retain those benefits through an alternative credit that builds off and is directly linked to the amount that they itemize on their federal return. In most instances, these new credits provide greater benefits than the old system. Now, these credits do phase out gradually as your income grows. So if you're a married couple with 2 children, by the time you're making $275,000 a year, you won't get any credit. But those people are going to benefit from that lower rate. And overall, remember, almost every Mainer wins. 95% of Mainers will see an income tax reduction. This is obviously good for home buyers. So why doesn't the National Association of Realtors think so? The reason has to do with national politics. There is increasing talk at the national level about changing the deductibility of home mortgage interest on the federal income tax code. And the National Association of Realtors doesn't want any state to take any action that might include the perception that somehow we're weakening home mortgage interest deductions, even though in the case of Maine, we're actually making things better for homeowners. So listen to this. Here is a situation where a national organization is putting in big money to defeat a law that is good for Maine people simply because that organization is worried about how what happens in Maine could affect their national political agenda. What have we come to, folks? Ladies and gentlemen, we need to resist this kind of special interest influence on Maine laws. Anyway, I've given you a lot of details and I apologize, but we wanted to get it out there. Here's what you need to know about question 1. There's a reason why every Democratic gubernatorial candidate strongly supports a no-on-one vote. Because the law advances democratic values and will help us run the state of Maine better. There's a reason why AARP and the Maine Children's Alliance and the Maine Center for Economic Policy strongly support a no-on-one vote. It's because it advances a progressive agenda and will help our seniors and help our children. I, for one, am very pleased to see enlightened members of the business community embrace the fact that democratic values are good values for the entire state of Maine.